Blake Lively is really out here acting like nothing is happening, and honestly, it's getting kind of wild to watch. Like, sit down for a second, because this whole situation just keeps getting messier the more you look at it. So Blake goes ahead and drops that public statement, right? The one that had everyone side-eyeing because it felt so tone-deaf, like she was trying to position herself as both the victim and the hero at the same time, and people were already cringing hard. But instead of pulling back, she doubles down. She posts bunny-shaped scrambled eggs. Bunny-shaped eggs. And we're all just sitting here like, girl, what? Because the timing is insane. You're in the middle of a legal mess, your claims are getting dismissed left and right, and you're on Instagram showing us cute breakfast plates like nothing is going on. And then right after that, she posts a carrot cake. Not just any cake, by the way. A perfectly styled carrot cake with her hand right there in the frame, showing off multiple rings. And you already know what that is. That's not random. That's branding. That's her making sure people and companies still see her as marketable, like, hey, don't drop me yet. And meanwhile, Ryan Reynolds is over here posting about a soccer team. Like, that's the content you choose right now? That's what you think people want to see in the middle of all this? It's giving distraction. It's giving panic control. And then the lawyer, Michael Gottlieb, comes in trying to spin everything like this was some huge win. And that's where it gets even crazier. Because if you actually look at what happened in court, it's not a win. Not even close. Blake had 13 claims, 10 got dismissed. That's not a victory lap moment. That's damage control. But Gottlieb starts off attacking Justin Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman, like that's the main issue. And that's always the tell, right? When someone starts going after the other side instead of focusing on their own case, you already know things didn't go their way. He's basically trying to say Brian doesn't understand the rulings, trying to discredit him publicly. Meanwhile, people are like, wait, didn't your own case just fall apart? And then Gottlieb tries to reframe the whole thing by saying Blake provided enough evidence to go to trial on her core claims. But here's the thing, no one's missing. The judge didn't say her evidence was strong. The judge basically said, this is a he said, she said situation. Let a jury deal with it. That's not validation. That's just passing the responsibility. And the way they're framing it is like, the court believed her. No, the court said she believes herself. There's a big difference. Because most of her claims are based on how she felt, not on clear, provable actions. And that's where it starts falling apart. Even the judge pointed out that a person in her position could have perceived things a certain way, not that those things actually happened, just that she might have interpreted them like that. And still, her team is out here acting like they just won something major. It's honestly giving that Charlie Sheen winning energy where you're saying you're winning, but everyone watching knows you're not. And the part that really gets people talking is the legal misstep. Because the reason some of her claims didn't even make it to trial wasn't just about the situation. It was technical. She was an independent contractor, not an employee. The incidents didn't happen in the right jurisdiction. These are things her legal team should have known before filing anything. So now people are looking at Gottlieb like, you charged all that money, built this massive case, and didn't even cover the basics. And it's not small money either. We're talking around $1 million a month for this legal army. And still, the outcome looks like this. So now the narrative is shifting. It's not just about Blake versus Baldoni anymore. It's about whether Blake's own team messed this up for her. And whether all this public noise, the Instagram posts, the statements, the interviews, is just them trying to keep control of a situation that's clearly slipping. And the more you look at it, the more it feels like everything around Blake Lively right now is starting to crack, not just legally, but socially too. Because while her team is out here trying to spin the story, people inside Hollywood are quietly stepping back. Not loudly, not dramatically, just distancing. And that kind of silence is way louder than any statement. Like, Let's talk about the Taylor Swift angle for a second, because that's where things get really interesting. Word going around is that Taylor is relieved right now, not celebrating, not publicly saying anything, but internally, yeah, she's apparently breathing easier, and that says a lot. Because if someone like Taylor, who's known for standing by her people, is feeling like she wants out of this situation, then you already know this whole thing is getting heavy. Apparently, the vibe is that Taylor just wants her name nowhere near this drama anymore. She wants it wrapped up, done, finished. Especially with her own life events coming up, the timing couldn't be worse for her. And from the outside, people are even saying it looks like Blake has already lost. That's the perception now. Not let's wait and see, but more like this is heading in one direction. And what makes it worse is that Blake doesn't seem to be pulling back. If anything, she's still pushing forward, still acting like she can take this all the way to trial and come out on top. But behind the scenes, completely different story. Reports are saying people close to her, like actual friends and people in her circle, are quietly telling her to settle. Not fight, not drag it out, just settle and move on before it gets worse. Because the damage isn't just in court anymore, it's her reputation. And in Hollywood, reputation is everything. Producers are already starting to question things like what happens if they work with her and something goes wrong? Does it turn into another legal situation? Is it worth the risk? And that's the kind of conversation you never want attached to your name in that industry. Because once people start seeing you as complicated or risky, the calls slow down. The opportunities dry up. Not overnight, but slowly, quietly. And what's wild is that the judge actually made a point that should have helped calm things down, but it almost got lost in the noise. He basically agreed that conversations about intimate scenes on set are part of the job. That when you sign up for a project, especially one that has certain themes, those discussions are expected. That doesn't automatically mean misconduct. And for a lot of directors and studios, that part was a relief. Because imagine if every conversation like that could turn into a lawsuit. No one would want to take that risk. So in a way, that ruling protects the industry. But for Blake, it kind of weakens her position even more, because now it's not just about what was said, it's about whether it crossed a line. And that line is getting blurrier the more details come out. And then just when you think it couldn't get more chaotic, Ryan Reynolds gets pulled into another legal situation. And this one, completely different, but still somehow connected to the same storm around them. So remember that Deadpool dance? The whole bye 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 thing that went viral? Yeah, apparently that's now part of a lawsuit. The choreographer Darren Henson is coming after Sony, saying his work was used without proper permission. And not just used, but rebranded in a way that completely detached it from him. And now it's not just about the movie. It's about Fortnite, licensing, money, credit, all of it. And Sony is right in the middle of it. And you know how people are reacting to this, right? They're like, of course this is happening now. Of course, another legal issue pops up around Ryan while everything else is already on fire. Whether it's directly his fault or not doesn't even matter at this point. It's the timing. It's the pattern. It's the fact that their names just keep showing up in these situations. And it makes you wonder how much pressure is actually building behind the scenes. Because from the outside, it might look like they're staying calm, posting normal content, living life. But when you stack all of this together, the dismissed claims, the public perception, the industry whispers, the new lawsuits, it starts to feel like everything is piling up at once. And people are watching. Not just casually, but closely. Waiting to see what move comes next, who steps away, who speaks up, and whether this whole thing explodes further or quietly settles before it gets even bigger. And now there's this new layer getting added that honestly makes the whole thing feel even more intense, because people are starting to ask a different question. Not what happened, but what happens next if this flips completely. And that's where the talk about a possible countersuit comes in. There are whispers that Justin Baldoni's side might actually go after Blake Lively and her team for malicious prosecution. And if that happens, that's not just messy, that's a complete reversal. Because now it's not her defending herself anymore, it's her being put on the defensive in a whole new way. And even though nothing is confirmed yet, the fact that people are even talking about it shows how much the narrative has shifted. Because think about it, a few months ago, the energy around this was completely different. It was all about her claims, her story, her positioning herself as someone standing up for something bigger. And now the conversation has flipped into whether she pushed too far, whether her team overplayed their hand, whether this entire case was built on something that couldn't hold up under pressure. And that's the part that's really starting to stick. Because when people begin to feel like something was exaggerated or mishandled, they don't just question the situation, they question the person behind it. And that's where things get dangerous for someone like Blake. Because her entire image has always been built on being polished, controlled, likable. This situation, it's none of those things. It's chaotic, it's unpredictable, and it's exposing sides of her that people weren't really looking at before. Even the way she's handling it publicly, the posts, the tone, the messaging, it's all being picked apart. People are noticing everything. The timing of her uploads, the way she frames herself, the subtle signals she's sending, nothing is going unnoticed anymore. And once you reach that point, it's very hard to regain control of the narrative. And then you have Ryan Reynolds right there with her, not separate from it, but tied into it in a way that's making people question him too. Because at first, he was kind of seen as supportive, just standing by his wife. But now, with his name coming up in other legal issues and the way he's been moving publicly, people are starting to look at him differently as well. Like, is he just supporting or is he influencing things behind the scenes? That question is starting to come up more and more, and Hollywood notices patterns like this fast. They don't wait for final verdicts. They watch behavior, perception, momentum. And right now, the momentum is not in Blake's favor. Not publicly, not privately, not even socially within the industry. There's this growing sense that she's fighting a battle that's already slipping away, and instead of pulling back, she's pushing forward harder. And that's usually when things get worse, not better. Because trials don't just test evidence, they test credibility. They test how a person comes across under pressure, how consistent their story is, how believable they feel when everything is being questioned. And that's exactly what people are saying now, that if this actually goes to trial, the real challenge won't just be proving claims, it'll be how Blake Lively holds up on that stand. Because up until now, everything has been controlled. Statements, posts, legal filings, but in a courtroom, that control disappears. And that's what her own circle seems to understand. That's why they're pushing for a settlement. Not because they don't believe her, but because they understand the risk of letting this go further. The longer it drags, the more damage it does. Financially, professionally, personally. And at some point, you have to ask what the goal even is anymore. Is it to win legally? Or to survive this without losing everything else? Because right now, it's not just about one case. It's about her career, her reputation, her standing in an industry that moves on very quickly once someone becomes difficult to deal with. And the truth is, whether people say it out loud or not, that shift is already happening. The support isn't as loud. The defense isn't as strong. The benefit of the doubt is fading. And in its place, there's curiosity, doubt, and a lot of quiet conversations happening behind closed doors. So now everyone's just watching, waiting to see if Blake Lively steps back and settles, or if she keeps going and risks turning this into something even bigger than it already is. Because at this point, it's